Hi everyone, and welcome to the Tony Tonkin Show. Glad you could be with me and with Avery in just a moment to talk about all things that matter to you, to me, to the world. Who knows? But we're here to discuss those issues with you. I also need to mention at this particular point too that some of you have probably already recognised I've organised a membership group through my channel, which means that you're entitled to join. Monthly fee is provided for membership, and I'll be running those membership groups on a Monday. So it'll be Monday membership, and during those sessions I will be doing things that will be different from what I do during our main sessions such as this. One of those things will be going through questions that people will be asking in the comment section, going through comment sections in general and responding to them. Also, the other thing that I'm doing is I'm putting together a link so you can link direct to my channel and have a conversation with me, just like Avery would be, either through video or just through audio. So I'm making that facility available for you. I don't know anybody else actually who runs a channel such as mine that does do that, but I don't know how it'll work because it'll be a lot of messing around and a lot of things I'd have to do at this end in order to make that happen. So, but I will be doing that with a link at the beginning of each comment section when I do my membership meeting group on Mondays, which will be at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon, South Australian time. So I hope many of you can join with me in that. And I've sent out 5 free gifts at this particular point for our membership. So join. Also remember that you can unsubscribe from that at any particular time. You don't have to be committed forever, and I don't expect people to either, because for some people it's too excessive. So, but it is happening. So please join with me. Please make my channel more successful than it already is. I hope to get to 10,000 subscribers by the end of next month. I think I was pushing for this month, but don't seem to be arriving at that. So, and also let me know what sort of things you think are important, what sort of areas you want myself to discuss or discuss with Nathan or Avery or Daniel, either of those 3 people that I have on my channel on a regular basis. Let us know what you want to discuss as well. And also remember that come next month at the Farrar election, I'm doing a live feed with Daniel Ogilvie around that. We did one for the state election here. It was very successful. We had over 1,000 views combined, and we plan to be able to do the same thing here as well. And it's great discussing those issues with somebody else, particularly in that particular instance, Nathan. So join with me. Let me know what you think. Let me know. Come to the Tonk side. We have cookies. Okay. Fair enough, boys. I appreciate that. Please let me know what you think, and any criticism that you may have about this new way I'm planning to do it. Remembering primarily it's about offering something for you that's a little bit different, and it's also about helping my site grow, and it helps to pay for all the things that I do, because this, even though I am retired, this is a full-time job for me. And bringing you our commentary and the news is important to me, because this is about progressive politics pushing back against mainstream media and the right wing in particular. So the work I do, I think, is important. Your contribution to it is equally as important as are the discussions that we have in the comments section. So today, as I'm speaking to Avery, we'll talk a lot about the commentary as well. So we've got 2 things that we're going to talk about. Primarily, we're going to kick off with. We've got some other issues to talk about. However long this takes, it takes. So the first thing we're going to be talking about in a moment when I introduce Avery to you is we're going to talk about freedom of speech. What does freedom of speech look like? What are the limitations around freedom of speech? Is freedom of speech governed too much by legislation, as happened in New South Wales? It happened federally as well. Are there things that we should or should not say in relation to the speech that we care to articulate? And the other thing we're going to be talking about, which is associated with a previous post I did today, which is on patriotism. So we're going to talk about, are we too patriotic? Are we not patriotic enough? Should we be patriotic at all? Do we understand what the word patriotism actually means? So these are conversations that Avery and I we'll be having in just a moment. And firstly, I'll do what I should be doing in the first. Well, I should just say, please also remember, apart from the membership side, it is also important to subscribe to my videos, to ring the bell for further notifications, do what you need to do around that. I find that very helpful. And the algorithm likes it as well, I'm told. So do what you need to do. But in the meantime, here's Avery. Good to see you, mate.
I'm good, and how are you?
I'm pretty fired up. I think, actually, to be frank, by the time I get to Thursday, I start looking forward to golf tomorrow, which is one of the reasons why I don't tend to do much posts on a Friday, because I'm too buggered by the time I get home to do anything. But I do tend to start to feel a little bit weary by Thursday, I must confess. We put a lot of work into doing just videos, and also I'm doing now Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I'm doing live feeds. So it's exhausting for an old fart of my age. So
you're a youngster. You're 3 months younger than I am.
I am. This is true.
Yes,
you old fart.
I'm an old fart. Yes, absolutely. I'm an old fart.
We're still focusing on the things that matter, aren't we? Which is conversations about issues that matter to you and to I, and hopefully to other people. Lots of people online at the moment. So thanks everybody for joining us. Please get involved in the conversation. Patriot time. Thanks, JG. I've changed it. I did have, my wife told me I misspelled it. I was in such a hurry to do things this morning when I put that up that I did misspell the title. So I do apologize. It is patriotism. I've changed it.
You got it.
You get to recheck that. Yeah. So, and one of the problems that I've got is that I reckon when I'm feeling really, really tired, I don't concentrate as much as I should. And I have Grammarly on my...
It's your age.
Yeah, I know. Lots of things are failing me at this particular point in time. One of them is my cognitive ability to function. However, I do think I'm one step ahead of Donald Trump in that regard. So, well, not ahead, but nowhere near as cognitively disabled as what he is. So
it'd be a hard job to
it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah, a prefrontal lobotomy would go a long way towards it.
Yeah, I mean, he's at the primitive state of cognitive decline right now. And we really could have a conversation as to whether they're going to implement the 25th Amendment, because it's about time the clown went, I reckon. But we wanted to start, we've got two key issues, Avery, that I just mentioned. One of them is what is free speech? How do we express it? What are the laws, the limitations around free speech? Is it appropriate? Is it not? All those sorts of things. And then we're going to talk about patriotism. What patriotism is. So people in our comment section, could you focus on those two things? I'd like to, someone saying, I'll look it up. Freedom of speech has always had caveats. You offend. I'll put that up. So that's from Groucho Globe. Good on you, buddy.
I saw that one. I should put my reading glasses on because I can see it, but I can't.
Freedom of speech has always had caveats. You offend someone enough, you will eventually get snotted. And let's start. Can we start?
As I said, if you should be free to say what you want, as long as you're prepared to pay the consequence. And in the case of what did he call himself, Groucho Globe, that means getting a smack in the nose.
Love the tag, mate. Yeah. And I think. But the question here is: should we wait until someone gets so upset with us that they come and punch us in the nose, or should we be more introspective and at least recognise that perhaps something? There's lots to talk about here. Because I believe that we should get to a point whereby we should be respectful of the way other people might be thinking anyway, and we shouldn't say things that we believe are going to offend them if we know them well enough. And generally speaking, we shouldn't call someone a black bastard, for example, and we shouldn't perhaps use the C word when referring to somebody, but we often use the word bastard to refer to somebody in a very congenial manner.
So we use the C word the same way.
Well, you could.
I mean, people in this country do.
It's a word personally I don't like to use. So.
Yeah, I don't use it. I don't like it. But in
people
this country,
might use it to describe us, though.
My brother does it all the time. And a number of times he's used that to describe me.
So when he talks about speech has always had caveats, I think that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
What do you think are the caveats around free speech? Kind of those things that perhaps limit what we can and can't say, or what restrictions there might be.
The immediate one that comes to mind is saying something that is likely, that will or is likely to incite violence.
Yep.
So you say you're standing with a huge crowd in front of you, and you say, "Let's go down to that building down there, and we'll take back our government." Right? And you incite an insurrection. That sort of speech should not be allowed. It should be, well, you should be allowed to say it, but you got to be prepared to pay the consequence. I don't like the N word. I don't like the C word. If somebody uses the C word, then along comes Groucho Globe with his remedy, and that person gets a snotting for it by the person who has called the N word. Right?
But the thing is, what does a snotting refer to? Does it mean that you become aggressive to them, punch them in the face, and find yourself in court for assault? Is that what that means?
I think the phrase snotting, as far as I'm concerned, means a smack in the nose.
Yeah.
A punch in a punch in the face. And do I think people should do that? No, I don't. But
no.
If you're gonna go around calling somebody using the C word to describe them, you're gonna call a black guy using the N word, and you get smacked in the mouth. You brought that on yourself.
But should we have Should we have a society which is civil enough to be able to understand that for us to be told? I guess this is the point. Should we be living in a society where we're told what language is appropriate and what language isn't appropriate? Because if we're not told that, and if there aren't limitations around that, people would say and do things that are just blatantly wrong and offending bloody everybody.
Good.
Should there be a limitation?
That argument is the same that I hear from Christians about without God you can't be moral. It's exactly the same thing. You've got to be told. You're that dim-witted, you're that slow, you're that immoral, whatever it happens to be, that you've got to be told what is right and what is wrong. You don't need to be. I don't need to be told to try to avoid saying things that are going to offend other people. I don't need to be told that. I don't need to be told. I don't want to be told that I can't criticize Islam.
But Avery, there are people out there who do need to be told. You may not need to be told, but there are people out there that would purposely do and say things that are about inciting violence or about hate speech. What do we do with those people?
Those people, they should be prosecuted. As somebody said there's already it comes with caveats. You can't go into a crowded theatre and shout fire. You'll be prosecuted for it. And I've got no problem with that, right? But the thing is that the way I see it is, I think I said it to you earlier. Once you start saying you can't say this, then you're on a slippery slope to, we've stopped you from saying that thing. Now we're going to stop you from saying this. At the moment you've got a left-wing government that says you can't criticize Judaism because that's anti-Semitic. So then you get a right-wing government comes in and they say, go for it, fill your boots about criticizing Islam or Muslims. Right? I don't criticize Muslims. I criticize the religion. I don't criticize Jews. I criticize the religion.
Yeah.
I don't criticize. Well, I do criticize people like Paul Murray. I don't criticize people on the right in general, the average Joe in the street who votes on the right of politics. I criticize the policy.
Or we could argue that we criticize people who are in power. So people that got influence, people that are more powerful than us.
Yeah.
We're entitled, I think, to criticize.
So I said I do criticize people like Paul Murray. I criticize Albanese. I criticize your fellow man, woman is the one who could.
Your fellow man, woman is the one who should tell what's right or wrong, and this is my issue. It would be nice to have, and I appreciate Rob's comment, because the problem is that a lot of people who simply think they are right can say and do things that are extremely damaging to other people, particularly people in power. So there has to be, I think, some form of limitation, or at least some sort of societal guideline that says that that particular behaviour is wrong and that there is a penalty. Where this goes over the line, though, for me, is when in Queensland they've outlawed from the river to the sea and infidata. So, those sorts of words are open to various interpretations depending on who you are. So, and I think that that is where it oversteps the mark. It's where politics tends to step in and say that one particular side of politics is offended by a particular statement made by somebody else, because in this case the Zionists don't like that, even though the Zionists use that term themselves. So there's a sense of hypocrisy also around some of the language that we choose and some of the ways by which it is interpreted, I guess. Would you agree with that, or are you frozen? I think Avery's frozen. He may need to come back in to this again. I better reset that. Avery, you better find a way to reset that and come back in. So I think there are some elements that we need to be mindful of in this discussion about, and I want people to let me know what do you think is inappropriate? What do you think can be done in order to change any of this? Do we need legislation? And that's my point. Do we need legislation to change some of this? Do we need a body overseeing some sort of oversight as to what sort of language is appropriate in all of this as well? I think that's important. So I'll just contact Avery and ask him to re-log in. I don't know whether he's... I'll just put frozen. This is Avery's side, not mine. So we'll see what happens with regard to Avery. Okay. So, and thanks, we've got $5 from Cosmin. Thanks very much, mate, because I thought you were also a membership member. So, but religion doesn't have feelings or compassion or the ability to care. So Cosmin says this. Now, it's probably worth explaining. I don't know why I've done that. I'm going to come back to me. So yes, I understand, but religion doesn't have feelings or compassion or the ability to care. That is a conversation that you really need to have with Avery, who's the expert in the particular area of religion. But in what way doesn't matter about religion? Is it just about, are we entitled to cause someone to feel a certain way? Are we entitled to denigrate somebody simply because we don't like what they've said or what they've done? Is that really the important issue here? And should we be mindful of the way people are feeling? Should we be aware that people are feeling uncomfortable with things that we say? Does that really, really matter? So we need to start to think about all of those things, I think. Let me know what you think. Are there sayings and verses that you would feel offended at simply because people are behaving in ways that make you feel offended? And how do we respond when we're being offended? Do we say, well, you've offended me, I don't want you to do it again? Is that as far as we go? Or do we choose other methods in order to get that point across? Do we sue people for causing us to feel offended? Or do we sue people and get really angry with them because at the end of the day, they've done something that affects who we are and how we see the world? Is that the way that it goes? Or do we get offended with people because they're saying things that are detrimental to who we are? And do we get offended, particularly when people say things that are going to affect our standing in the community? Like politicians, like other people as well. The people who practice the religion. So Grouser says, put this up, trying to the people who practice the religion or who show the compassion and care. not everybody practices religion. And the question here too is, do we have to practice a religion in order to demonstrate some sort of... Avery's just told me he's got a reboot, so we'll wait for Avery to come back on. But the question here is, because you're a Christian, do you have a specific right to be able to say whatever you need to say to somebody else, and simply argue that because I'm a Christian, I have a specific perspective and I have a greater sense of right and authority than somebody who isn't a Christian? That's the issue for me, because I think that being a humanist, which I would call myself, is someone who does have a set of values and a set of principles, got nothing to do with religion. It's simply about who I am and how I perceive the world. I think that's the important thing to try and understand. Now Avery's computer's doing some updates. Well, I guess he'll come back when he's ready. So let us know what you think. I'll just go through, have to consider the word... Oh, right, okay. JG's raised a point. We'll bring it up. Have to consider the word wog was offensive in the 70s. Then TV shows like Kingswood Country. And there's also one that was put out that specifically mentioned wogs, I think, made into a laugh. Then wogs out of work, that was the one, came along. So that is, I think, where the Italian and Greek community were reclaiming specifically that particular word. And I guess to some extent, to be gay or lesbian, some of the language used around being gay, lesbian or trans has been reclaimed. Some language used to describe women have also been reclaimed. Languages in relation to people being overweight, languages like fat, have been reclaimed. So there comes this moment where those people that would normally be offended are choosing to reclaim those words so they're not offended by them. I think that's worth noting as well. So what is that telling us, JG? Is that telling us that we have made decisions about how to change the language so that it best fits with the times, if you like? Or are people saying, well, I don't care anymore if you call me a bastard or a bitch or whatever it might be. I'm going to reclaim that as being something that I can identify as being positive about who I am. Like wogs, dagos, and all those other languages that were used back in the 60s and the 70s. What do you think about all of that? If I don't want to be bold, I don't want to learn. True or false? So this is Cosmos. Cosmos asked this question and he gave us $5 to find out. So I'll bring this up for Avery when he comes back online. If I don't want to be bold, I don't want to learn. True or false? I'll bring that up for Avery when he returns, if ever he returns. I'll just go through some of the questions. So Woolhood says, who is a member, I hasten to add, I think, says religion wipes out a bunch of women that most likely were the thinkers, healers, and wisdom holders. I swear it made us dumber. I swear it made us dumber down the line. I don't know what you mean by that last sentence, but it wipes out a bunch of women. And also, the inclusiveness of women now, breaking through that glass ceiling. All those things are important. Have we changed enough to accept that that is a different way of being? In what other ways have we changed our language? And I think someone just said here, told not bold. So Kim, could you just explain that? Told not bold. So there are different ways of thinking about who we are, and there's certainly different ways of expressing it. Some of those ways may be offended. For example, I guess, if you tell someone who's straight and they're homophobic and you tell them that they're gay, that could be offensive to them. But if you tell someone who simply is gay that they are gay and they accept that, then clearly that's not offensive. So there are different ways, I guess, of viewing all of this. Someone said, Sandra says, okay. Sandra says, I don't know why you put that up, Sandra. I miss the bird life you see in the bush areas. Yeah, fair enough. Someone says, Australia, we must have... Oh, this is JG again. Thanks, JG. You're very helpful. In Australia, we have managed to turn a majority of negative language into a fairer light somehow. And I guess that's true, but also I think some of the language that we have used in the past still offends to people this very day. I'm just going to see if I can just reconnect with Avery. So bear with me for 5 seconds while I just organise all of this. I'll disconnect that and I'll reconnect that and see whether that works. No, still not online. Okay, one of the other areas that we want to talk about was patriotism. So I played a video earlier today which talked about patriotism. And so, well, before Avery gets back on, we'll just discuss this as well. So this, one of the videos that I played was this one, not that one, this one. So Labor's progressive patriotism. So I'll play part of this video again for you so that we can better understand what it is we're talking about. So this will kind of be a springboard for us having this further conversation about all of this. So I'll play this here.
Well, but clearly it's all about patriotism, right? There was a piece today in the Financial Review where I think it's a former Labor government staffer, but still, you know, Labor embraces progressive patriotism. James Morrow. What the
hell does that even mean?
I don't think anyone knows. James Morrow, of course, absolutely whacks it out of the park as well too, which is this sort of, you know, hard left-wing progressivism pretending to just occasionally say, how good's Australia? It ain't the patriotism that is fueling what has been happening, particularly in South Australia and One Nation around the country. Tomorrow night, I'm going to get really into some deep dives. Some of the demographics that are backing in One Nation are going to blow your mind. I'll get into that tomorrow night. But again, Lucy, this concept, right? Now, again, the right doesn't own strength and the left doesn't own compassion and nobody owns the flag, but it's all a little bit 1 minute to midnight conversions that they want to hug the Australian flag all of a sudden.
All of a sudden, because they've seen this rise in the polls when it comes to One Nation. So there is this great sense of now all of a sudden we are proud Australians. And as Milanauskas was saying, you know, well, there's nothing wrong with wanting to put an Australian flag on your car all of a sudden. James Morrow pointed it out in his speech.
Yeah, well, I just need to add that I don't think Milanauskas, this is where they make shit up. I don't think Milanauskas necessarily said that we need to put flags on our cars anymore. Milanauskas did say that we should be patriotic, a little bit more patriotic. This is a concept that I struggle with greatly, and I want us in a moment to have a conversation about this. This conversation we're having now with regard to this video from Paul is simply a springboard for that.
In his election victory speech, he referred to the word patriotism or patriotic at least 6 times. When have you heard this type of rhetoric coming out from the left? When people were taking to the streets of Melbourne, and indeed we've seen it here in Sydney, and burning this beautiful flag, did they have anything to say? Did the Prime Minister?
One of the things we need to note here is how many times have people seen anybody burning the flag? And what is so precious about this flag? And is this so friggin' American that we need to be mindful that burning the flag for some particular reason resembles anti-patriot, is not being patriotic? So is burning the flag saying that we no longer love our country? Could not burning the flag simply mean that we disagree with the government policy, that we see the flag in this particular instance as representing something like cruelty to Indigenous people, about not supporting the Palestinian movement in Gaza, not making statements about or failing to understand the impact that Trump has and bending over backwards to support him and lick his ass? Is that what burning the flag could actually mean to some people? It's a bit like the statement from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea can mean that we want resistance, that we want this country to be fair and equal, and we don't want it to be divided anymore. Burning the flag could have just as much a symbolic reference as is that. But nevertheless, burning the flag seems to spark these so-called crazy patriotic person like Lucy Zellick and Paul Murray to start to determine that it is the right wing again, and only the right wing, that seems to be able to have their handle on what patriotism means. Because people like you and I, or people on the progressive side of politics, do not understand what patriotism actually is. And I find that extremely, extremely offensive. So we'll play a little bit more, then we'll talk about it some more.
We need to punish these people and we need to do something about this because that is not the Australian way. No, the Australian way, according to the left, has been to feel ashamed of our heritage, of our culture and who we are. No one is saying that we have to celebrate the atrocities of how this country was to be founded, but at some point you need to recognise we've forged something incredible here and that this isn't something you can just co-opt now as a populist movement because you've seen that people have had enough of you hanging garbage on this country. And that's what this is ultimately about, Paulie, and I resent very much that any type of patriotism or nationalism is ascribed to this far-right, fringe-dwelling extremism. That is so wrong.
Mate, literally far-right extremism. I remember reading a university paper about this recently where they said, that reverence for days like Anzac Day and Australia Day was the beginning of the signs of people starting to lose their way.
Sick
okay,
people.
right.
No,
and again,
sick people.
Let's see what...
Sick people. So who in the friggin' hell are you calling sick, you strange individual?
What happens, right? And again, Malinowskis, and talked about frothies and all. Fine, right? Okay, again, a little patronising, but still, right? And he had his thumping win, no denial about it, right? But Stephen, again, clearly, One Nation connects with a whole bunch of people for a whole bunch of reasons. Now, rather than go around and around on this, did you have particular insight about what happened in South Australia that proves as a potential warning to places like Victoria, where there are more regional seats in the parliament, places in New South Wales where there are more regional seats in the parliament?
So the point that Murray's making quite poorly, I think, is that One Nation, and this really pisses me off, and I don't know whether others see this or not, but the right wing, in particular Sky News, who resembles the current thought patterns, if you like, if you call them thought patterns at all, in relation to patriotism in this case, is basically saying that to be patriotic, you need to be more like One Nation. You need to object to things like immigration. You need to object to climate change. You need to object to all those horrible, horrible things that most of us on the left do find offensive. And I wanted to bring us to, I want to keep talking about this issue though. So where is patriotism? What does it exactly look like? How do we express it if we need to express it at all? Or do we even need to use that word, patriotism? Can we find other words that express how we feel about our country? And is it appropriate for all of us to feel some sort of passion for where we live and express that passion at every possible moment? Because the thing that pisses me off the most is that we, on the right wing, we have a whole host of criticism, particularly around the multiculturalism that is Australia. They try to, and I saw Pauline Hanson try and do this the other day, where she tried to talk about multiculturalism as being kind of okay. It's all right. It's like we have to live with it. I wished we didn't. I wish everybody was white. I wish everybody had red hair. And I wished everybody lived on a farm and earned $1 million a year. She has no connection whatsoever with other people around this country. And is her definition and One Nation's definition of patriotism what it means to love your country? Or do we have to love our country? Can't we just care for each other? Isn't that enough? Like, what are the real issues in relation to all of this? And how do we manage them? And how do we push back? Well, my channel is about pushing back against all that stuff. Okay, thanks. Dee's is telling me he has clicked the link to join, so I will endeavour to see if I can get Avery up again. Right. Do we have Avery back? Hi, Avery. Still have the sound issues. I'll just try and bring Avery in as best I can. I just need to pop him off down here. So bear with us, folks. Got to fiddle around with this. Yeah, still can't hear you, mate. So you need to work hard at that, I think. I'll try and bring him into another shot, so you can at least see. You can at least see what I'm doing, which kind of itself is a bit of a struggle. So there's Avery, looking very, very good, but we just don't have audio.
Can't hear me at the moment.
Oh, we do have audio.
Good.
Got audio.
Yeah, my PC decided that it was going to implement some updates.
Oh, that was thoughtful of it.
Yeah, that was really kind.
Well, we've been having a chat about. Well, I've been talking, and people have been punching stuff in, but we've been talking about patriotism. So,
Yep.
And we're talking about One Nation and their influence on power. I have to bring Avery in this one. Bear with us, folks. Just got to pop him in here so that we can. There he is. So we can. We were talking about patriotism in terms of the definition as defined by One Nation. You know, I just played that video of Paul Murray's video where they were talking about burning the flag and how terrible all of that is and all that sort of stuff. So I won't go into that. So can you give us your version of patriotism while I take a little bit of a break? Oh, he's frozen again. God. I don't know what this tells us about Avery. He's frozen on this shot as well. It's not looking all that crash hot, is it, Avery? No, Avery's frozen again. Avery did get a new computer a few weeks ago, and I reckon that probably says it all.
I'm back.
Oh, you're back. Oh, what happened there?
I've got no idea.
Well, I was just telling everybody you bought a new computer a couple of weeks ago, so maybe it just hasn't got used to your ability, your technical ability, which is...
It could be.
Anyway, I was just going to
It
say,
could be
Avery,
because Bill Gates hates me.
Yeah, well, you know, technology doesn't like me either from time to time, as the people in my comment section know. Perhaps you could just tell us a little about, if you've got time to think about it, patriotism, where does it stand? What does it resemble to you? And is burning the flag a terrible thing if you hate things that the government's doing?
Burning the flag is an expression of your distaste at something that the government has done. It's a freedom of speech thing. When you burn the flag to protest, nothing wrong with that.
So what does give us a description then of what? Because you were originally British. So was there a sense as to what it meant to be British? Is there a sense as to, you know, what it does mean to be an Australian now that you're an Australian citizen? You know, can you just draw some comparisons between all of that for us?
Well, being patriotic to me means it's a love of country, it's a love of your culture, it's a love of your traditions, your history, and things like that. Being proud of it. There are things. If you're truly patriotic, then there's a difference between being patriotic and being jingoistic. The Yanks are jingoistic because to an awful lot of Yanks, it's my country, right or wrong. So in other words, it doesn't matter what they do, because it's America doing it's good, and that's not necessarily the case.
But you could.
The British government,
but you could be British and be patriotic towards some of your history, but you may not like the King or the Queen or the notion of
absolutely, absolutely,
right?
absolutely.
So for some people, but could you be seen as not patriotic if by some people if you weren't a monarchist?
Oh, my cousin Scott, who's actually born and raised in Australia, says that I am not a patriotic Briton because I do not support the monarchy. I am totally opposed to the monarchy because of people getting power and prestige and privilege through accident of birth, not because they've done things to merit it. Right now, you've got people like the little fella, Prince George, William's eldest son, From the day he was born, people like admirals had to call him Sir, right? Or Your Highness. What had he done to deserve the respect in that? And the answer is nothing, except be born into the right family. I don't envy them what they do, their position, their money. I don't care about that. But to get the respect and the deference that they get just because of accident of birth, I don't think is merited. So I don't support it.
And
I'm not
fair enough?
patriotic.
I mean, is it fair enough as a British person also to criticise, I don't know, slavery?
Absolutely.
You know,
the UK was the first country. The UK was the first country to outlaw slavery.
Yeah, I know. After many centuries of slavery, not to mention them taking over.
Do you know when slavery was outlawed in the UK?
Where?
William the Conqueror in 1089 did it.
Well, he should have done it earlier. I'm very disappointed in him.
Nearly 1,000 years ago,
but well, maybe that was in the UK, but slavery was a thing in the Caribbean and in some of those countries in which they conquered.
Mainly by French and Spanish.
See, now here's true patriotism. Here's Avery standing up for the British colony, and I'm expecting my wife to get online at any particular point and criticise you for all of that. But so anyway, you raise a good point, though, Avery, because we can argue about things like history and whether or not it was appropriate or not, or whatever it is the country was supposed to have done or did not do. We can argue about that, can we not? And would that determine, though, our degree of patriotism, or can we both be equally as patriotic even though we may disagree on those issues?
We can both be equally patriotic, because I don't. If you were to, the example, this is going to stir people up, I imagine, with some people, you, for example. Everybody refers to Australia Day here as not everybody, a lot of people refer to it as Invasion Day.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that word, right? Do I think what the British did when they got here in 1788, the way they treated the indigenous people, do I think they were right? Absolutely not. They did some horrendous things. They did horrendous things when they got to the Americas. You know, the genocide of the indigenous people here pales into insignificance compared to the genocide committed by people from Western Europe when they got to the Americas. The UK, Spain, and Portugal in particular. It was horrendous what they did, and I would criticise them right now if the British government, if the Australian government said, let's go and colonise, we'll take over New Zealand, we're going to invade and colonise and make them the
New Zealanders are trying to colonise us, Avery. We've got it the wrong way.
I know they are, but I'm just using that as let's say the government said, let's go and do that, I would oppose it.
Yep. But
it was wrong back then, it's wrong now.
But is it inappropriate, and this would be my argument about Invasion Day, that the people who wish to call it Invasion Day are those people that believe they were invaded?
Well, who first called it Invasion Day?
Oh, it was an Aboriginal person sitting at Uluru with a spear and an arrow. I don't know. I don't know when it was. I would imagine
the first people I ever heard calling it Invasion Day were Europeans.
Yeah, but we don't.
Not indigenous people.
Well, I just want to make one point. We don't know.
No.
I'm assuming that the people that have used that word to describe what happened on that day, on Australia Day / Invasion Day, the people that are utilising that language are indigenous people.
There are indigenous people using it.
That's right.
Yeah, there are,
right.
definitely.
Primarily.
So I wouldn't say, I don't know that it's primarily.
Well, I'm saying I haven't seen non-indigenous. Well, I guess there are a few that don't agree with all of that.
I'm looking at a non-indigenous person who calls it Invasion Day.
Sorry?
I say I'm looking at a non-indigenous person who calls it Invasion Day.
Well, it's good to see you're looking at the mirror, because no, well, I do. I call it Invasion Day.
I know you do.
It's about celebrating or at least acknowledging some sort of solidarity with Indigenous people. They started calling it that. I didn't start to call it that. They made it that, and I agree with them.
If they started calling it.
If they started, whoever
yeah,
did, let's
if-
not argue about that any
Whoever
longer,
did.
but whoever
Yeah.
they did. But, you know, I
Yeah.
guess the
I'll
point,
just use that as an example, you know, of the sort of thing that I don't agree with. Right? I don't agree
Yeah.
with the term, but I still fully support their rights.
would you,
100%.
if you could find another term, what term could you use?
I've got well the term that was used for 200 years or more was colonization. It was,
Well, and that terminology is used as well.
yeah, I know.
But I guess
I
the word invasion has a little bit more oomph to it, a little bit more significance than just
think,
colonization.
yeah. Very quick aside. If we're going to call that an invasion, should we call the Angles arriving in England in the year 900? Should we call that an invasion?
Yeah, probably.
How about when the Celts got there 500 years earlier? How about when?
Well, I agree. It probably was an invasion.
Well, no, or just people coming across looking for a better life and settling there.
Well, it's why we have now, you know, people on the right referring to mass immigration as an invasion. It's the same shit.
Well, it's
It's depending on what context it's used and who's using it. I think that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Just
anyway,
someone
we
just
were
said
talking
just the
about
odd massacre here and there. Yeah, right. Okay.
Just the odd massacre,
historically, changing it now to many is just disrespectful, wrapped in a velvet red tape, says Wallets. Okay, yeah, so patriotism. That's the conversation.
Patriotism, love of the country, the respect for the country, pride. You can be patriotic and still criticize the country, the things that the country do. That doesn't.
Okay, so
criticizing your country because they've done something like they've got a history of murdering the indigenous people. Right?
Yep.
You don't hide it. You talk about it.
Yep.
You acknowledge the fact that our ancestors did this. When people criticize John Howard for not offering an apology to the indigenous people, he said, "Why should I apologize to them when I didn't do anything?" And I get where he's coming from. He didn't personally do anything, but his ancestors did. Between John Howard and me, I can say my ancestors didn't do anything to the Aboriginal people here because my ancestors don't come from here.
Hmm.
You know, my white European ancestors don't come from here. None of them do. So I can say my ancestors had nothing to do with it. People that might have been distantly related because they were English, yeah, they had something to do with it.
But isn't
do
it
I
important?
Do I regret what they did? Absolutely.
But isn't it important to acknowledge the impact, in this case, of Indigenous people, and the way they view that to this day? And
the impact of or on?
Beg pardon?
You said the impact of, or do you mean of Indigenous people or on
the
Indigenous
impact
people?
on Indigenous people.
It's important to acknowledge both.
Yeah, yeah,
because
absolutely.
the Indigenous people have got a lot
At the
to offer.
time. Yeah, sure, I understand that, but it's their call as to how they view that.
Oh yeah,
it's not for us white people to tell them how they should or should not be viewing it.
I'd like to know who it was that first called it invasion.
Well, if someone could Google that for us, maybe we could find out. But certainly, just this notion though around what is patriotic. Is it about because we can still, I could list a lot of things I love about this country, a lot of things. And we certainly have freedoms in this country that a lot of other people don't have. And we can compare ourselves to, someone says, Sandra says it's called truth-telling, Avery. Just want you to know that.
I don't disagree with that.
And it is. But I think we could start to at least acknowledge. It isn't like, when it's called non-patriotic because the other side disagrees with us about our our views, particularly around Indigenous people and lots of other issues that happen in Australia, and the right wing and mass migration and all that shit, and, you know, the wokeness and all that crap, we're suddenly seen as non-patriotic. But we could still talk about the things that we like about our country.
Yeah.
It's not like we're completely vacant of those things. It's just that some of the things that we don't like about the way we're governed often are at odds with the right wing and how they believe that their view is the right view. Therefore, because it is the right view, it is anything that counters it is not patriotic.
Yeah, they don't. People on the right don't get to determine what is patriotic and what isn't. They've hijacked it as though they own it.
Yeah,
and they don't. And people on the left don't own it either.
No,
patriotism is across the board. It does not acknowledge your political views at all. Got nothing to do with your political views. If you love your country, if you're proud of your country, if you're prepared to criticize your country for the things it's done that it's done in the past that were wrong, the things that it's doing now that are wrong,
yeah,
and then to me, you're a patriot. If you want to, you asked on another thing on that video you did about what was progressive patriotism, and I've got an answer for that as well.
Okay, just before you do, I just want to do this quote from Heidi. White privilege, we didn't get to choose our skin colour or our heritage.
Absolutely true.
That is so true. But what we did have is a sense of reasonableness about how it is that we might choose other people that are not white and who don't have the same heritage. I think that's the point.
I could go down one of my favourite rabbit holes and explain why we treated the Aboriginal and the Indigenous people around the world the way we did.
Before you get to that, you were about to say something else, though.
Yeah. You asked on the other video you did today, what was progressive patriotism? And I think that I'd say progressive patriotism is the love of country, the pride in the history, the love of the country's culture, etc., alongside of social democratic improvements that you want to make to the country. So you want to improve Medicare, right? You want to spend more, you know, you want to give people a better health outcomes. You want to give people a better education. You want to provide that a good safety net, social safety net, doing that sort of thing, strengthening the institutions that we've got like that. Where on the right, their idea of patriotism seems to be anything that makes our country look good and strong is what we need. And we don't really like Medicare. We're not going to get rid of it because it would be unpopular to get rid of it. We'd lose votes, but that's the only reason they're doing it. They're not getting rid of it. I think you tie in the social programs that people on the left want to do. Now you've got that's where you get your progressive patriotism from.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's well put, actually, because it is about providing policies that are going to benefit the most vulnerable people in our community.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's really what it's about. That's what my channel's about in particular.
Yeah.
And highlighting those issues. You know, it's like, you know, celebrating the NDIS, celebrating the increase in the wage, the decrease in the gender wage gap. You know, making sure that people that do the aged care are getting better paid. People doing childcare are getting better paid. They're all issues, I think.
All of them need,
But the other side would be happy to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You know?
If on the right of politics, they would get rid of Medicare in a heartbeat if they could. Yeah. But they know that would be a politically disastrous for them.
Yeah.
Right. Sandra's saying not to mention. I can.
Yeah, I agree.
Patriotic and welcome. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a long discussion with former Senator Rennick. Yeah, thank you for that. I had a long discussion with former Senator Rennick about this, and because he was criticising immigrants right? And I pointed out to him that every single person in this country, including him, who doesn't have ancestors that were here more than 250 years ago, is either an immigrant or the descendant of immigrants.
Yeah.
You know, and as far as the refugees are concerned, I remember back in the days when they were coming over on boats and they were putting them in camps like we used to have up north of Adelaide here, and we had and they're putting them in detention centres all over the place. The people they were doing that to were people from Iraq or Afghanistan, where there was wars going on. And my argument at the time, and it still is now, is that what we should have done is said you can live and work in the society. You're not going to go and live in a camp. If you stick him in a camp, these refugees in a camp, all you're doing is breeding terrorists, because you're giving them a reason to hate us. Let them live and work in society until such time as it's safe for them to return home, and then if they want to come and live here, they're welcome to do so, but they go through the process of applying and all the other stuff that people like me had to go through.
I remember too, down at Pennington, which is a suburb which would be southwest, I guess, or west of the city. Mm. And they used to have those old metal army huts that they used to house people in. And I can remember going there when I was much younger. I think I was selling insurance or something bizarre, and meeting up with a family there that were Czechoslovakian, I think. And it was really interesting. They were there to get a fresh start. Yeah. It was just a holding place for them. They didn't, in those days, it was easier to get a job. It was easier to get housing and that sort of stuff. But those people always remind me of the foundation of this country, that this is, to them, we owe what we have today. And that we need to celebrate that. And it's one of those things that I think, the person just said, as Trevor just said, we need to welcome this still today, regardless of the size of this country in terms of population and the issues that we front. We still need those people here to better who we are.
We do. We're a better country because we abandoned white Australia.
Yeah. And I just need a lot of discussion going on at the moment, which is fine. Talking to yourselves. I wanted to just change tack for a little bit and talk about the orange clown for a while, Avery, because I know he's a favourite figure of yours, someone you admire. And there was this video of Paul Murray talking to Megyn Kelly, and I was taken by this video because the headline is "Hallelujah." This is a quote: "Hallelujah, hallelujah," in quotes. Megyn Kelly praises Trump for taking control of Iran war. And so I thought it might be fun just to play a first, I can see you're excited by it, to play the first minute or so. This might cause your computer to lock up again, mate. Who knows? Maybe it's a right-wing computer you have, or a left-wing, I don't know. But anyway, here's the quote. So watch this and tell me what you think of all of this crap.
Fingers crossed. Trump is going to find some sort of an off-ramp here. I got to be honest, I was pretty nervous when they were talking about the deadlines around the Strait of Hormuz, the idea about knocking out Iranian power plants, Iran then turning around saying they were going to knock out desalination plants. All of that would just have tumbled the Middle East into an even worse scenario. I hope he finds the off-ramp. Do you think he can? My biggest takeaway this week so far is he clearly wants to. So great. Hallelujah. That's the biggest thing. Does he want to? Because Trump can do whatever the heck he wants. He is in control of this. Like the Iranian...
Okay, let's just stop with that for a second, Avery. So her comment was, he is in control of this. Well, he's in control of the forces, I guess, that are going over there. And what we must not forget is that Trump started this bloody mess in the first place. For a man, how different... Look, I've often thought about this in the last couple of weeks. How different would this world be today had Trump not started this war? I watch Question Time every day, and every single question is directed at Chris Bowen. because all the issues are about petrol supply.
Yeah.
That's and the Liberal Party look friggin' pathetic, to be quite honest.
There's nothing that Chris Bowen can do about it because he doesn't control what Trump is doing, and it's all down to the orange Hitler in the White House.
Yeah.
If he, as I said last week a couple of times, he had no exit plan when he went in there. He did not know what he was going to go in for. According to him, he'd already destroyed their entire uranium infrastructure when he bombed that mountain. This time last year, sort of thing, whenever it was. He told us
June last year.
June, yeah. I know it was sometime early to middle of last year. I wasn't exactly sure when, but he told us he completely obliterated it. He's told us that he's 100% destroyed the Iranian ability to attack, and yet somehow or other they're still launching missiles at Dubai and Qatar and Kuwait and wherever. They're still Israel. They're still launching missiles at that. He doesn't know. He's got no idea what he's doing. He's not in control of. He's in control of the U.S. Armed Forces in the sense that he says go and fight that war. He's in control that way, but he's got no idea of strategy because he doesn't listen to people who do know about strategy and tactics. Because those people would have said, "Don't do this, Donald," and a sane president would have said, "Okay, I've listened to your arguments. I agree. We don't do it."
And there have been many presidents that have gone before him who were left with the same alternatives, I guess, and chose not to.
Yeah.
And we're now discovering why they chose not to.
You know, the US has got the biggest, most powerful military that the world has ever seen. They've got a really great knack of starting wars and losing them.
That's right. They won a couple of ones. You ask them about the War of 1812 and they'll tell you they won it. The British and the Canadians fought them to a standstill. Right? Nobody won it. They didn't win the World War One. I guess
they didn't win World War Two. They didn't win Vietnam. They didn't win Korea. They started the Korean War. They started the as far as the American West. When the French left Vietnam, the Yanks said, "Oh, we'll deal with it."
Yeah,
they lost that as well. They could take on a tiny little island like Grenada and win.
Yeah.
They didn't. They haven't won in Afghanistan. 20 years fighting, and the Taliban are still the government there. They haven't won in Iraq. Right? They are not the greatest army. They're greatest in that they're most powerful.
I wouldn't suggest that Trump not only is the world's worst red politician in American history, is also the world's worst tactician. And because the world's worst tactician is the person who simply says, "Well, I just do what my gut tells me to do."
Yeah.
You know, that's just the most bizarre response I've ever heard. And so I'll play a little bit more of what Megan has to say because she's an inspiration to us all.
They have a hand to play and they're playing it. The Israelis, same. But Trump is in control. If he wants this to end, it's going to end. The Iranians don't really want this to go on and on. They just want a say at the negotiation table. And they've managed to maneuver themselves to a place where they have it. Trump is listening. And I think all we really needed to do was get him to the point where he's like, I want out. I've had enough. And it seems like he's there. Thank God.
He's there. Thank God.
Megyn Kelly is like Donald Trump. When that brain cell dies, it's going to die alone.
Yeah, she's pretty woeful.
And
I guess, you know, like when do the right wing, what will have to happen for Sky News, Megyn Kelly, even though Megyn Kelly has spoken out, to be fair, she has spoken out against Trump in recent times. But you know, and we know that Tucker Carlson has, and some of these other influencers, and Joe Rogan and others. So we know that they are. But when are they going to get to a point whereby they cause the MAGA side of politics to turn against Donald Trump and simply say enough is enough. And I just want to finish that point by saying, I guess, that time will probably come after the land forces arrive in on the Isle of Karg, and that eventually people will start to realise that lives are being lost, and that therefore that should be a time that we should blame the person that's responsible. But I'm quite sure that Trump would at that point turn around and blame Pete Hegseth and throw him under the bus at the same time.
He would never take responsibility for it himself. He's the one that ordered them in, but he was bad advice from Pete Hegseth, his secretary of, he's incompetent is being kind to him.
You're not wrong. I think he's got
no idea of anything, any strategy, any tactic. His art of the deal, right, is garbage. The book, The Art of the Deal, he didn't write it for a start. Somebody ghost wrote it.
Yeah.
He's been saying that the Iranians have been talking with the Iranians, and the Iranians have been saying we haven't heard a word from them. He said 2 days ago that the Iranians have got until he's given them 5 days, and they've got until the 26th to come to the negotiating table, stop the fighting. Yesterday he said, I've given them 5 days, they've got until the 30th to stop fighting. So his 5 days are moving along. It's just 5 days there. It's like, I'll have a healthcare plan next week. It'll be ready in 2 weeks' time. This war's going to end when the Iranians decide to talk to him in a week's time, in 5 days' time. Another 5 days, another 5 days.
Yeah. Groucho Globe has just reminded us, and this is an important issue, that recent elections in Florida, which were long-time Republicans, have now gone Democrat.
Yeah.
And that is so true. And so maybe there is this turn. I don't know. I don't see all that much sign of it from the right. But there could be, I guess. But it did bring us... this is a nice segue you've arranged for us. Thanks, Avery. Because what it does do is it helps us to move into this particular article that I've got here. The insider trading shadow hanging over Trump's sudden back down, which is the thing you were just talking about. I'm just going to pop you in here before we do anything else. So this is interesting because this is actually about the amount of money that had been made from the moment Trump made the statement about him having got this negotiation thing happening with the Iranians, and the effect that had on price of oil. And a whole lot of traders must have known about this before he delivered the message, because 40 minutes later after this, the Iranians came back and said, "You're a friggin' liar, Trump. We're not negotiating anything with you." But the guys that made this bet beforehand made around $500 billion.
Yeah.
I think it's billion. Anyway, they made a lot of money.
Insider trading is criminal.
Yeah, I know. And, would there be, if that happened in Australia, I'm sure that the people that are responsible for that would be found out, and the ACCC would be on their back, and they would be made public, and they would lose their jobs and hopefully jailed. But this is the United States, the greatest democracy on earth, whereby this sort of democratic behaviour is kind of acceptable. In Trump's era in particular, where he's just made billions from being in power and selling access and all that sort of shit. So just back to this article, though, the Inside Trader shadow hanging over Trump's sudden back down was the unusual and suspicious trading activity in oil and share futures earlier this week, insider trading. Or was it astute traders taking advantage again of Donald Trump's predictability? Last Saturday, Trump gave Iran an ultimatum, posting on Truth Social that the US would hit and obliterate Iranian power plants, starting with the biggest one first. If Tehran didn't reopen the Strait of Hormuz, he gave Iran 48 hours to comply. Just after 7 a.m. on Monday in the US, in another Truth Social post, he walked back the threat and extended the deadline by 5 days, saying there had been in-depth, detailed and constructive conversations over the weekend with Tehran about a complete and total resolution of the conflict. Iran subsequently has denied there were talks and has rejected the administration's plan for an end to the conflict. 15 minutes before that post, about 6,200 oil futures contracts, notionally worth about 580 million, I apologise, according to a Financial Times analyst at Bloomberg Data, each contract represents 1,000 barrels of oil, so a $1 movement in the oil price generates a $1,000 profit or loss. There was similarly unusual activity in S&P futures, where there were contracts that were nationally worth $1.5 billion traded in prediction markets. In individual oil stocks, there was a burst of activity in Exxon options, for instance, and it seems in some European markets. And the bottom line there is that this is a con.
Yeah.
This is another one of Trump's cons.
Yeah.
And so he'd be sucking up to all his oligarch MAGA friends, telling them what he was going to do, or someone else would spill the beans to them, so that they could make a fortune and be very grateful for Donald Trump being the dickhead he is.
Trump himself, at the beginning of this regime, back in January last year, he was worth about $3.2 billion. His current worth, I just saw a newspaper article about it early last week, was nearly $7 billion.
Yeah.
And he's the president. He's not supposed to be earning any money apart from his
salary.
So where did the extra $3 billion and change come from?
And whatever happened to
the answer is
emulance
grifting.
clause? Yeah, what happened to the emulance clause? You know, that clause that says...
the emoluments clause.
Yeah, that's the one. Sorry, I got it wrong.
Well, the difference between the United States and this country is, in this country, we've got regulations and we've got governments that they enforce regulations. In the United States, they're currently, I hate to use the word led, but the head of the government in the United States is a moron who absolutely hates the idea of regulations, so he's scrapping them all. And anything that's going to prevent him earning that extra dollar, he's getting rid of them. You know, he's weaponized the DOJ to go after people. He wants to get rid of the I can't think of his name, the guy that's head of the Federal Reserve. He wants to get rid of him because he won't do what Trump wants him to do. He says we're independent of the US government. We're set up by the US government, but we're independent. We don't make decisions just because you say so, Donald.
Yeah.
No? And because he knows that if he can get a lackey in there, he can then implement changes that's going to make him even more richer. You know?
Yeah, the one thing's for sure is he's on a good thing. He's on a good wicket when it comes to financial. But, you know, like, why does he need so much money? Is it about the money, or is it about influence? Is it about power? It's about all these other things. Is it about an ego? I reckon it's about ego and narcissism.
It's about him being able to say, I'm the world's richest man, or something like that.
Well, that won't be happening, but he doesn't need to be wealthy, does he? He has all the influence that he needs. He's on the blink, and how many times do we have to put up with seeing his ugly face at press conferences and giving speeches and demonstrating, what a... And, the other thing too is, why don't Americans feel embarrassed by this dude?
I'm sure that a bunch of them do, but 77 million of them don't.
Well, I don't think all those. I know those people voted for him. I think a lot of those people would turn away.
Yeah.
And independents in particular.
I think I said last week, if you take away the independents that decided to give him another shot, despite the evidence of what he was like the previous time, take all that lot away, he's got a base of about 25 million people.
And then we have people like Megan Kelly telling us that he's kind of a genius. He can end this war whenever he likes.
Where does the idea that
friggin' started it in the first place?
Where does the idea that he's a genius come from?
He did. He told everybody he was a genius.
From him.
Yeah.
He is really pissed with people like Stephen Colbert, because Stephen Colbert got hold of his the scores that he got in high school and published it. And where he's telling everybody he was number one in the class, right? In that year, out of 600 and something people, 634 people, he was like 632. You know, but according to him, he was valedictorian at Wharton College, and his professor at Wharton College says he was a dickhead,
and that apparently got someone else to sit his exams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we know all of that, right?
Yeah.
We know what sort of person he is, but they tolerate him.
Yeah.
Why do they tolerate him? Because the oligarchs and people in power need someone they can use as a puppet to get the things that they want. Even if it is, and people overseas, like Netanyahu is definitely using him as a tool to get what he's wanted for 47 years, which is to invade Iran, and particularly to take over the Middle East and to control all of that. Yeah. And how's that working out for Netanyahu at the moment? Not all that well, because the Iranians are proving to be smarter than he is. Yeah. And the Iron Dome isn't working anymore.
No, it certainly isn't. I mean, I saw things, news reports just the other day showing these missiles coming in and flattening, coming in from Iran and flattening buildings in Tel Aviv, I think it was, apartment buildings. Netanyahu, somebody asked me the other day about Trump, and I said, oh, he's Netanyahu's vice president.
It's sad. The whole thing's very sad, but
yeah.
Okay, so I'll leave it to you. Any parting words, mate, before we say goodbye to everybody?
I'm just sorry I missed a lot of the conversation on patriotism because of the my computer decided to stuff around and got no idea what was going on. It just decided it was going to do updates.
I'm sorry you missed it too, because I had to ramble for about 10, 15 minutes on my own and bored people silly.
I was messaging Dee, asking her message.
Yeah, I saw that. She kept on coming in here and saying his computer's fucked up and he'll be back shortly. And anyway, that's the way it is. So stay online, mate. I'll talk to you in just a second. So thanks everybody for being here. It was an interesting session, to say the least. Hopefully it doesn't remain like that on other occasions. But there again, I keep telling to people that the technology is not necessarily always my best friend. But I do want to say that on Monday, for those people that have joined us, joined me as members, there will be a special, and I don't care whether it's 2 or 3 people, I don't care, that join us. But at 3 o'clock on Monday, we're doing a special members meeting session, which is answering your questions, responding to comments, and also giving you the opportunity to join me face-to-face in the similar way that I did just with Avery. So that opportunity is available to you if you want to take it up. If you want to you don't have to be a face, you can just do audio and have a conversation with me. That would just be fine. I'll just, the link will be up there and you can do whatever you need to do. I want to thank all those people that have joined as members, and we'll be offering free memberships or a gift in membership for the next. I can do it one more time. I think I've got 10 I can allot. So we'll be doing that next time I go live, which will be Tuesday for people generally. So thanks everybody for being with us. It's great conversations. So many of you had a lot of people have come online. Really do appreciate it. And we will be in contact with you through other videos, and particularly on my members on Monday, and for everybody else on Tuesday. Look forward to catching up with you all then. In the meantime, take care.